What is up? It is late at night. I'm getting my blue light glasses on. It's only 10:05, but that's late enough for me. I actually want to get some stuff going here and going over some of the stuff that I was talking to with my buddy. We can go through here. Before we do that, I want to get something in. I found this video and I think it's incredible. I just want you to listen to this before you start this video.
My goodness, in case you haven't read your Bible today, verse of the day is John 13, verses 7. Jesus is washing Peter's feet, and Peter's confused, like, what are you doing, washing my feet? And Jesus says, you do not realize now what I am doing, but later you will understand. Sometimes God moves in ways that don't make sense in the moment. They don't make sense right now. Sometimes he'll take you down a path that you didn't plan for, or close a door that you wanted open, or pull you out of something that you thought was good. But later, when you look back, you realize that he was setting you up, protecting you, preparing you, or building you. So if there's anything that we can take from this, it's that we need to always trust in his vision for us, trust in his will, not our own. Trust in the moments that don't make sense, because they usually end up being the ones that matter the most. In case you have...
And I thought that was beautiful. I really did. Overall, I mean, for me personally, and I hit a prayer today, and I want to start doing that more when I get into the market, not to pray to win, not to pray not to take a loss, but to pray to learn from what I am doing and to be present. And that's how I'm going to grow. So they did a live call today, and I missed the call because I was at work. My buddy Tim, he's from Belgium, if I'm correct, recorded it. So here you go. I didn't win all the way to the end of the call because the majority of things Ronan already went over. Oh, yeah. He got a lot of notes. I might watch the rest tomorrow. Jeez. Is it blurry? No, it actually works really well. Alright, perfect. I might watch the rest tomorrow. XX. FOMC, which was the news event we had on Wednesday, didn't really do anything. We took previous week highs, but not the daily for value gap. When we talk about the daily for value gap, I'm going to go over the trading video real quick. If you watched my video from today, I had 2 videos that I dropped today, and this could be the third in a day. It's kind of ridiculous. But nonetheless, I'm giving sauce, in my opinion. And while I'm learning, I would like other people to learn with me and actually be able to grow. So we go into the daily time frame. Talk about this daily fair value gap right here on NASDAQ. That daily fair value gap, right? So that's what he's talking about. So yeah, we took previous week highs, but not the daily fair value gap, which we were rejecting lower today. But we did clear out a ton of liquidity, so Ronan was bullish coming into the day. While I was bullish coming into the day, I quickly went bearish. Just like at 8:30, often manipulates by injecting liquidity. This also happens on the weekly time frame, with huge news events like FOMC, CPI, NFP, where price just accumulates before, and then the news events is the manipulation for the week. When you're trading, there's always going to be risk on the table, and you can't always have the perfect trade. So there will always be drawbacks. Don't seek perfectionism in the markets, because the markets aren't perfect. This is something that I've heard from Mark Douglas, and it's very true, is a lot of people, personally, like even myself, I tend to be a little OCD and a perfectionist in what I do, and I noticed that with my journal I used to do, and even just how I was trading a month ago. I even tend to still trade that way now, but we're getting better. I am often looking for certainty in the market. I'm often looking for a certain, like, I need to see this in order to get here. I need to see this. This is going to confirm it. It's certain. It's set in stone. But the market just offers uncertainty. It's complete uncertainty. There is no certainty available in this market, right? And that's when it comes to it, where you have to be able to perform in an uncertain circumstance or environment, right? So don't seek perfectionism in the markets, because the markets aren't perfect. The reason people stay in the break-even stage is because people go to break-even too quickly. So you got to pick a point where price has the ability to reverse, not just react from. Because the reaction is going to be enough to completely take you out. You have to think, is this reaction going to be enough to completely take you out? Am I in this trade? It might put me back to break even, but that's fine. So if price hits a 30-minute fair value gap or 30-minute high or low, probably go break even. Definitely go break even. 842 trade is a bare minimum mech, so kind of a pattern trade. And we can go over that. I don't remember exactly what time this was. Why the fuck is there a gap in my market, bro? What the fuck is this? I'm sorry, am I tweaking? It better not still be there when I go back on that 5 minute, I swear to God. What the fuck is that? Why the fuck is there just a gap there? Am I missing something? Why the fuck is that there? That's so weird. Is there a 10 minute? Is there a 15 minute? Is there a 1 hour? No. Did market not load data through this time period? That's kind of ridiculous. So 842, what do we see? Like I said, as around this area where we tapped in, we were wanting to target one probably unfilled 5 minutes here. Because where are we coming from? I think this is what he's mainly talking about. But we're delivering from this key level, right? Tapping the fair value gap. We swept the Asian session highs. And you could take the first inversion, and that's what you could have taken on this. And then 842, like I said, your target unfilled 5 to 50 minutes. Right? That's just something to go off of. 842 trade is a bare minimum mech model. We just did a video on Ronan talking about the bare minimum inverse for value gap. So it's kind of a pattern trade. And the reason it failed, because you're targeting an SMT at a high that ES swept. You're targeting an SMT at a high. Oh, I'm not even thinking right. You'd be playing it a move off of the sweep here, the sell side sweep that happened here, and to tap into this fair value gap. Now I understand what's going on. So we tapped into that 1 hour that we ended up inversing, right? But when we tapped into that, we also swept 1 hour low. There's people who were probably looking for an inversion, which I'm assuming was on the 2 minute. I don't know where the fuck your inversion is, but there's people that definitely took this trade and wanted to target highs up here. The reason it's a bad trade. And the reason it fails is because you're targeting an SMT at a high that ES already swept, and you don't have low resistance liquidity above as a target. So you're targeting a high resistance high. Failed high quality manipulation, 2 at the 935 lows. ES generated low resistance where your stop loss is. I think this is an example. Yeah. It's the PO3, but this is an example of coming up in the 842. Low resistance around your stop loss. And like I said, there's an SMT. I believe it was failed then. Yeah. 1017 trade was not a bad trade. It was more of a discretion trade, but purely, and that's talking about 917. It was more of a discretion trade, but purely a nice trend trade based off price being very bullish and ripping through everything. Also a small PDI where price tapped into a 4 minute fair value gap and then or 30-second inversion. But again, discretion trade. And that was that example, I'm assuming, of this. That was that example. How do I get out of here now? There we go. And then the trade that Blake took today, and I went and made a YouTube video on this, that is this trade right here. We'll go into that. The trade that Blake took, this whole leg on the left was imbalanced, and we're trading from external range liquidity back to internal range liquidity. There was low resistance at the stop loss, but price was rebalancing the range. Since price was super overextended, price also delivered from a 15-minute fair value gap, which is, like I said, that retracement up into this 15-minute. And inverse 2 5-minute fair value gap. So price confirmed it wanted to go lower. So you have your confirmation. Then you can just look for a small continuation lower to rebalance the edge. Start off using your discretion. This is huge. I'm going to highlight this. Start off using your discretion by fading setups. And later on, start using your discretion by taking a trade based off it by taking a trade based off it by quote unquote breaking your entry pattern. Less is more. That's huge. And I took a picture of this. That is fucking huge. Taking it. Oh, I can show the Blake trade, which I'm assuming. Yep, right off there. Target unfilled 5 minutes. He got a 30-second inversion, I think, though. Taking a trade like this is where you take a 5-minute continuation based off a 5-minute fair value gap that got sponsored from the higher time frame. The 1 hour is lower probability and valid because price is probably overextended, and you're taking a 5-minute continuation off a 5-minute, and not from that initial 1 hour fair value gap. Right? That's that key level. You didn't take it off of there, but you wait for this, and then you take it. you know. So I'm going to read that again. Taking a trade like this where you take a 5-minute continuation based off a 5-minute fair value gap that got sponsored from the higher time frame is lower probability / it's an invalid setup because price is probably overextended and you're taking a 5-minute continuation off a 5-minute and not from that initial 1 hour fair value gap. When tapping inside a high time frame gap and you have a resweep and you have a reswept the high for the second time, it does not become less probable because price might still be in that manipulation phase. And as long as price doesn't inverse the fair value gap, that green box, there's no problem as in how many times price resweeps a high. Just not that much as where it inverses the higher time frame gap or becomes very choppy. Hopefully you understand this. And here's examples of that. Here's that short I think that Blake took. Here's the text in case you want to copy it. So that was really it, just going over that. Then you go to the trading journal as well. I'm going to have to go to Notion. I don't know what I'm doing. Did I have a TikTok account too that people I know are starting to follow, and that's not what I want because the people that I know I went to school with don't trade, so it's like the account's not for them, and it's like, bro, really? I don't know if I want to keep this A+ trades, but just to go over, that was the trade example from today. And we can go into, I didn't finish that, fuck. I should probably do that tonight. Just to go over that again. So yeah. Trade that Blake took, this whole leg on the left was imbalanced. The whole leg on the left of us was completely imbalanced price, which we'll go back on. This right here was completely imbalanced. Like I said, we had that unfilled 5-minute. And we're trading from external range liquidity back to internal range liquidity. There was low resistance at the stop loss, but price was rebalancing the range since price was super overextended. So understand, like, this trade had low resistance. Why? Failure swing high. This high did not sweep it out. It almost did. So it's low resistance. It's a low resistance stop loss, but this is why it's a little more discretional. So yeah, you had low resistance at your stop loss, which normally you would want to avoid, but price was rebalancing the range since price was super overextended. I have a great example of this, by the way, of an overextended market in my trade journal copy, which I will look at here. We were super high up. I'll just go to the 1 minute. Super overextended, and we didn't tap into a hard time frame key level, but we did sweep highs, and these highs up here, and we got an SMT. Price is also overextended, discretional trade. But look how that puppy played out. Today that was not the case, right? But we'll just give an example of like the 15-minute on this. Super overextended, and we had unfilled 15-minute, unfilled 15-minute, unfilled 15-minute. Price was very imbalanced to the left of us. Target that, right? So, but price was rebalancing the range since price was super overextended. Price also delivered from a 15-minute fair value gap, which was, like I said, right in here on the 15-minute. We can go to the 15-minute time frame just so you can get a good look at it. That was the 15-minute that we were delivering from. And like I said, if you want a whole trade breakdown, watch the last video I made. I think it goes very well in depth. And inverse 2 5-minute fair value gaps. We inversed 2 5-minute fair value gaps on the way up there. We had 2 5-minute fair value gaps, one here that got inversed, and one here that got inversed, right? Those got inversed. What do we see? We're retracing that 50 minutes, so that's just another thing to note. Inverse 2 5-minute fair value gaps, so price confirmed it wanted to go lower. So you have your confirmation, then you can just look for a small continuation lower to rebalance the range. All right, so I'm going to go into that in a second. We had a 5-minute inversion here. That's really it. But the main thing when he's saying it, I'm going to try to understand this well, is start off using your discretion by fading setups, and later on start using your discretion by taking a trade based off it, by breaking, quote unquote, your entry pattern. The idea of usually we don't want low resistance highs or low resistance highs or lows at our stop loss is because it's a higher probability that price is going to take it out. So you normally, when you see that, you will start fading setups. But when those trades do play out and you can learn from them, then you can journal what happened on top of that and know when it can work out. Right? But normally you wouldn't want that. I thought that was absolutely beautiful. So, just even looking back on it, like I said, taking a trade like this where you take a 5-minute continuation based off a 5-minute fair value gap that got sponsored from the higher time frame, which is the 1 hour, is lower probability, and it's invalid because price is probably overextended. You're taking a 5-minute continuation off a 5-minute, not from that initial 1 hour. So that's for that. We can go into the Discord itself, which I should have. There we go. We can go into the 1%, anything in the 1% as of right now. Vayner called today, man. Thanks. You never. I wish I could have joined that call. Fuck. Alright, homework I could still get done. Accountability groups. Is there any announcements, notices? Q&A at 6 Eastern today. Sorry for such a late update. Hold on. I'm going to pause this real quick. It's going to be very long, but this is going to go into that video. So I want to get this out for y'all.
See, kind of like we're still in this range, right? FOMC didn't take the daily gap that we've been looking at, right? We took previous week high, but we just, oh my God, I don't know why we just will not take this, bro. Price just refuses to hit an imbalance. So FOMC didn't really do what I wanted it to, but I did recognize, yeah, we did clear out a ton of liquidity and mainly this accumulation. So I don't know if y'all were here whenever I said it, but I was kind of describing this FOMC thing before we get into today's price action. I was wanting y'all to look at this accumulation as a weekly time frame thing. So we all know about 930, right? And how 930 is a volatility injector that manipulates. So we love whenever 930 has this little pre-open accumulation to do what? Open, inject volatility, and then manipulate, right? We love that. And it's the same thing on the weekly time frame. So understand with these big ass news events, and I'm not talking like regular, red folder. I'm talking like CPI, FOMC type stuff, like huge ass events. You would love to see this little accumulation to do what? Allow that volatility injection to manipulate. But the issue is, we did, like, bro, I don't know why, but like we couldn't just hit the gap. Oh my gosh, it was so stupid. So yeah, we got decent manipulation out of that, but it just like wasn't what I wanted. We didn't break out of this range. We didn't go all the way to the sell side. We didn't go all the way to the buy side. We actually stayed in this range, and this is kind of part of December price action. December price action is 100% navigate and be profitable within, but I usually do see just like a more high time frame consolidations like this, and just a little bit more iffy PA. Doesn't mean it's tradable, just not exactly what we want. But yeah, moving on from that. We clear all this stuff to the sell side, and of course I'm still high time frame bullish. I want to continue this trend after sweeping this low inside of that weekly fair value gap, right? That intermediate low. You can see how much displacement we get, and we're just burning through price. Haven't really done that. So obviously bullish. I like the fact that we cleared out all these lows, and I was going into the day being, of course, bullish, right? We are at this point, and I kind of saw, disrespecting bearish because we didn't really have anything major yet, and respecting bullish. So I was just waiting for that PD rate, and this is where my trade came about. And I don't really like my trade in terms of teaching it to y'all. I really like my trade for myself, but I would hate to see y'all kind of lean into what I did because it's not really what I recommend entirely. I took a 15-second inversion, so we're just gonna go into that. Obviously, high time frame bullish. I'm still learning this stuff up here, and I was okay with us just sweeping these lows. We did have this 1 hour gap over here as well, so like it's a sponsored high time frame move. And I was just kind of expecting, we just go higher. So the way that my entry came about, and it was at I think 936, was right here. My gosh, bro. So So we had struck lower. ES did the same thing. ES did the same thing, right? So ES had a 1 hour gap the same way that NASDAQ had that 1 hour gap. It was this one right here. You want the 15-minute time frame? I can't have both pairs in replay mode. I low-key hate that. But we have this SMT, right? So off of RIP, I'm seeing us diverge where, right? We're diverging in a spot that aligns with what I'm wanting the high time frame narrative to be. I was bullish at open. We did end up running lower, but at this current point, I was bullish. And this is exactly what I wanted, right? So ES swept liquidity, hit a high time frame imbalance, and so did NASDAQ with that SMT as well. So I was like, bet, I'm going to be looking for a setup here, and I went onto the 15-second time frame, right? Ooh, little weird, right? I'm going to go ahead and close ES for this, just so I can like full screen this, but all you need to know is that we diverged at those 15-minute lows, this 1 hour gap. ES has a valid sweep, right? Swept all of this, hit a 1 hour gap. So both pairs are in a spot of distribution that is aligning with what I want the high time frame to be, and that is bullish, as well as low time frame manipulation, right? And on top of this, every time I say this with PO3, I'm genuinely becoming a broken record, bro. You want your PO3, your high time frame candles, to generate liquidity for your manipulation, right? What does 930 do? 930 does fuck all, right? 930 doesn't manipulate. 930 doesn't sweep significant liquidity. 930 does generate liquidity. I think we swept out. Yeah, we swept out equal highs. That's not valid manipulation. Come on, I know y'all know that. So we get perfect generated liquidity on top of everything else we have, and then we do all the manipulation to the sell side, right? That SMT inside of the 1 hour gap, and then as well on the low time frame with this little AMD right here. And you can see we actually don't get a valid close. We actually close above it. This is where like kind of the discretion part comes into play, and also where I don't want y'all to repeat this. This is a 15-second time frame, and I'm breaking the entry pattern. Obviously, you don't want to pattern trade, but like you would preferably have your entry not, obviously you want it like this. You don't want us to be breaking the high priority inversion, especially as low as the 15-second. I just had really high conviction here. Because this is how I trade every day. Like I'm a PO3 like fanatic. That low-key sounds super fucking stupid now that I say it out loud. But I really like how we generated liquidity. Like I just see this every day. I just love it. I really do. The SMT with the manipulation, like, and then the displacement up, right? Even though we don't close within the inversion, this also is kind of like a change in the state as well. So like, what is the inversion? How do we use it for our entries? Well, an inversion, if our entire understanding of price is based off of liquidity and imbalances, all an inversion is the disrespect of the opposing side, right? So inversing a bearish gap, inversing a bullish gap. What is the change in the state of delivery? The same exact thing. You're disrespecting the other side of delivery, the other side of bearish bullish, right? So it's the same thing. And I just really liked it. I really liked the LR, and I assumed that we would clear it. And I barely got a 1-to-1. Oh my gosh, I actually got so lucky. So I'll show my executions here in a bit. Top Step was low key Jewing me. I entered like obviously on this close, and
holy HD, bro, it pissed me off.
Kept like insta closing me. I think I made the mistake of I have like auto TP set, and for whatever reason my auto TP was at like $10. So every time I entered, and then obviously like I'm in like with a decent amount of contracts, it would just insta sell because I'm hitting $10 in profit. So I had to fix that. Ended up getting my correct entry, but then my alpha accounts were like perfectly fine because I didn't have whatever that was. And I caught, I think my average fill, I think it was at like 600. And the stop loss I used, because you would wonder like, oh, how are you going to get a 1-to-1, right? Because a 1-to-1 with this would actually be above the wick. I used the 30-second order block low. Now the reason why I used the 30-second order block low, with it being a 15-second inversion supposedly, is because of my approach to SMTs. I wouldn't expect this leg to be disrespected whatsoever, right? Assuming it is the SMT, assuming that this displacement is going to run up higher, because I was bullish, I was expecting all this shit to get cleared this way. Us running below this fair value gap, as well as the 30-second order block low, reaching for this SMT low, would mean that we're likely wrong, right? Us going here versus here is no different. Like to me, like that's just my approach to my stop loss. If we went all the way lower, we're probably just going to clear it out anyway, so I might as well just have the stop loss that I like. And I luckily got a 1-to-1. My top step accounts didn't hit TP for whatever reason. I kind of got fucked today. It was kind of gay. But I had to manually close my top step because I saw this wick down, and this was going to be my break-even point, right? Because I was mainly targeting LR, right? The reason why I like this trade so much is my approach to using high time frame imbalances or high time frame DOLs, combining that with low time frame low resistance. So I did really like this setup, like it's just what I look for every day. Like y'all see now I've traded for months, and this just really resonated with me. Would I want y'all to recreate this? Absolutely not. I would hate to see, like, I love that I took it. I have super high discretion or high conviction, but I would hate to see y'all take this because it is just so bad, bro. So bad for y'all, good for me type of thing. Because like it's just really not worth it. 15-second time frame, you're like pushing it, but obviously I'm now past a year of profitability, and I have a definable edge on what my discretion can offer, right? And a part of this, right, we're just gonna go into discretion real quick before I go into the next setups or just price in general. I want y'all's approach to discretion to mainly be breaking out of, the strictness of an entry pattern, right? In this scenario, we still have invalidations of the opposing side, right? Bearish invalidations. So that's really all you're looking for. That's all an inversion is. But my approach and what I want y'all to do is your discretion should never involve neglecting the manipulation. Notice how the only thing that's like really discretionary about this trade is kind of the low time frame entry model. It is not where my stop loss is, or I do have a different stop loss. It's not where my manipulation is. It's not about my high time frame narrative. All of that stays the same. I just kind of bend the rules with the entry pattern. There was a trade that Blake took the other week, I think, but it was very similar, right? We had a ton of LR, like generated so much. We had like a perfect open, and the only drawback to his inversion is that we took the internal high, right? Actually, the same exact issue with my trade was the same exact issue he had with his. So it is a really good intro to discretion. Make sure that whenever you're saying, oh yeah, this is a discretionary trade, that it's not discretion in the sense of neglecting your stop loss. It's discretion in the sense that you're neglecting maybe your strict entry pattern, maybe a little bit of a different DOL. I don't want to be seeing trades where y'all cope and you say, oh, Ronan, it's a discretionary trade. No, the fuck it's not, bro. You have no stop loss. You have no manipulation. That shit does not count, right? So that's my trade. Does anyone have any questions on that? Wait, I'm getting that. How do you find balance between wanting too much A++ and not taking some bullshit? I'm currently cooking and backtesting whenever you got advice on this. My approach to this is there's always going to be risk on whenever trading, right? Probabilities do exist, and you can't ask yourself for the perfect setup every single time. There was a trade. It was actually my last loss. It was 2 weeks ago. No, I think it was last Friday. But it was a setup where there obviously was a definable drawback. There was a 30-minute gap below my stop loss, but we already had the high time frame criteria appeased with the 15-minute. So I could have looked at that setup and been like, oh, dude, it's not A+++. There's a 30-minute gap below me. Obviously, there's going to be a reason as to why you lose every trade, right? That's just how it is. Like, there's always going to be something that someone can tell you, like, oh, dude, you should have seen this or you should have seen that. But this is just part of trading. You have to accept the risk. Nothing is 100%. There's always going to be a definable reason as to why your trade lost, and there's someone that's going to give you shit for it, bro. Oh my, whenever I took a loss last time, I had so many people saying, oh, this was avoidable. This is such a dumb loss. I'm like, bro, oh my god, give me a break. Anyway, so don't seek perfection in the market because the market is not perfect, right? You're obviously going to have risk on the table. You will have that once in a blue moon type of trade where it's genuinely perfect, and that's the type of trade where you see like damn near everyone in the Discord taking, right? Like I always notice whenever that trade appears, everyone takes it, right? So like that's kind of, and it's super rare. It is super rare. So just accept that there's probabilities and risk that will always be present within the market for any trade you take. Took a short at 934. Oh my god. What?
Huh?
What? What do you mean 934? Wait, who is this? Erica, what's going on, bro? What is this? Yeah, I don't know what inversion you had. I don't know what manipulation you had. I'd actually be very curious to see your understanding of that. But by the looks of it, you're fading high time frame imbalances. You're fading an SMT. You don't have an entry confirmation. You don't have proper manipulation for your stop loss either. How do I learn PO3? PO3 is just the open low, open high, low close videos you'll see on Flop. I just go a lot more in depth into it. It is the way I like to teach PO3 is obviously with like a script or like a definable thing. I have a video up on it. I'm gonna be making a new one going to like stacking PO3s, but I don't want to like confuse anyone. I would just watch the content I'm already posted and then ask me questions about it with the trades you take. Can you explain the last part you said? Can you explain the context of it a little bit? Can you draw some endgame loop on YT? I got you. That'll probably be the PO3 video. Rammies? You mean patties? Fuck is Rammy, bro? How do you feel so comfortable longing even though we failed to inverse the 4-hour bearish gap and we've edged Asia lows? So at this current point, we were actually trading within that gap, so we hadn't closed below it. And what I saw, because like that obviously is a valid reason, you could say like, oh yeah, now we're starting to reject the 4-hour. But what I kind of saw in this area was that this 1-hour gap, even though we're now below the 4-hour, I was assuming that this 1-hour would then hold price. So even though we're below this would then distribute us back up, and then we get that 4-hour closure. So that's kind of what I was assuming. I wasn't really worried about the 4-hour gap in this scenario because we had these BD arrays with those SMTs on them. I have a question on your trade, but for a break-even point to be valid, it has to be a point where I think it could reverse off of, right? Or would it be valid to go break-even on a point where I think it could give a reaction, but not a full reversal? I mean, yeah, this is totally valid, but like, is the reaction? Because what I find a lot happens with people that struggle with being in the break-even stage a lot, right? Like, I feel like a lot of us, or a lot of y'all, can get to that point where you go from having, your equity curve looks like this, right? And now you're just kind of ranging, you're just going up like this, essentially the break-even stage. What I find is the main issue is that y'all are way too quick to go break-even, and you're missing out on the winning trades that will ultimately make your equity curve obviously start moving up. So you really gotta. It is kind of my approach to break-even is entirely discretionary. Is the reaction really a big deal? Because obviously price is going to retrace, right? Even on the low time frame, sometimes we'll even just print a wick. There's not even a gap that we're going to retrace into. But is the reaction like the reaction wouldn't really be an issue because like you would just assume that you have a retrace into guess what another reaction back to the buy side or sell side, whichever one you align with. My whole thing is that it should be about a full reversal. It should be about your stop loss being threatened by like whatever we just hit, right? If we hit a 15-minute gap, if we hit a 30-minute gap, best believe I'm going break even, bro, because that shit can easily slam my stop loss. Did you sweat when it went in drawdown? Honestly, nah, bro. Whenever I'll show you my execution. I have to get them from this other tab. But whenever we went in drawdown, that's whenever I entered on my alphas, right? So I entered on my top step accounts first, and I had that whole fucking issue with top step, and then we were like way above my entry price because obviously for the most part I just click, change tabs, click. But top step was giving me issues, so I couldn't do that. Whenever I was in drawdown on my top step accounts, I actually entered on my alphas, so I actually really wasn't tripping. Like I was hoping for a better entry price if anything, because I look-key got fucked on it, but I was fully convicted. What do you think about the 5-minute IVG 930 short? Probably really bad because we hit a new imbalance. Bro, what? Oh, you're talking about short? I mean, this is kind of what I said earlier, or not earlier. I think this was Tuesday. Why do you want to trade at market open? Right? It's kind of the same thing I was talking about earlier, like high time frame. If 930 is a volatility injector, you don't know what we're gonna do. You know, what if we went back to the buy side? What if we cleared out this LR? Holy shit, equal my what if we cleared out all this stuff and then went down? You know, because you really don't know with 930. Obviously, you can have somewhat, strong conviction at this point, but I feel like entering on market open is probably done. Like, I actually don't know anyone that's consistently profitable that does this on a regular basis. Yeah, maybe once in a blue moon, but that's once in a blue moon, right? I don't think entering at 930 is ever smart. I don't care if this setup is obviously, valid or whatever. Actually, yeah, we also inverse the 15. I know that we're rejecting off of the hourly here. Yeah, no, I wouldn't really agree with it. Like, I do agree in the draw, right? Like, LR over here, you have open imbalances. I think it's obvious, but it's just, like, if this hits stop loss, I know y'all would be pissed, right? Like, think of how many times you've entered at 930 open, hit stop loss, and you were like, bro, this is so dumb. I could have just waited 20 minutes, and now it's like 950, and you actually get your valid entry, but you can't do it because you fucking blew your account trading at 930. I think trading market open is just really dumb, regardless of the setup. Was there any reason we flipped bearish temporarily on the high time frame? I know we had an SMT at 930. I'm going to go into this in a second, actually, once I clear questions. Yeah, that's probably for the best. Just like figuring out like where you are most comfortable and most convicted. What's the difference on not expecting perfection but also not settling for less? Well, not settling for less. Like the reason why I've said that recently is you shouldn't settle for less on your stop loss, right? You should still have the main things, a high time frame gap. Like when, because I obviously have said that a lot, and it's always in reference to manipulation. You shouldn't settle for less on manipulation with every single setup, but you also can't expect perfection. Like that trade where we had a 30-minute gap below me, we still had that 15-minute gap. We still had a ton of LR, but it's not perfect. It is kind of a weird balance. But it's really just settling for less mainly applies to the manipulation part, if anything. Like the DOL, you can kind of bend a little bit. I took a burn. All right, bro. I'm assuming you're saying patties. Yeah, I'm not gonna lie. Going into 2026, so I'm gonna be logging in on my live account, and I probably will be taking more discretionary trades just to give you all a heads up on that. I'll also get into this in a second. Do you really think PO3? 100%, yeah. Because it's combining. Like think about it, right? If you're using the high time frame to justify your trades, why would you not want to align yourself with high time frame candles? Like that's all PO3 is. PO3 is the high time frame candles manipulate, running to liquidity, and then distribute. So yeah, I would definitely say PO3 is worth it. And PO3 is just open high low close, open low high close. You're just combining obviously price. 1003 long. What's your? Oh, what? Okay. Does anyone else have questions? All right. It looks like we're going to the. Okay, bet. Okay. We'll go over the 942. So the next setup that we had, and the reason why I actually think this setup is worse than mine, despite it being a 1-minute close, is what we did, right? This kind of did give me bare minimum bank vibes a little bit, right? You're targeting that 5-minute gap, but what is the 5-minute gap? It's a 1-minute swing, and on top of that, it manipulated. But more importantly, what did ES do, right? ES is now rejecting these highs. ES is also manipulating at 930 highs on top of that. So it's just really, not too worth it. So I'd say the reason why this failed is that you're targeting an SMT high, a high that already rejected a gap. It kind of does give me bare minimum bank vibes. I wouldn't say it's the worst trade in the world, but I would say once you see these fat rejection wicks off of the 922 SMT, which is currently this low time frame range high, 930 as well, and then you see, and this is another thing, right? Look at the market through manipulation. Notice how we put in perfect manipulation, right? The manipulation I used to take along just got ran through, right? An SMT at a high time frame gap and a low time frame SMT. Think of how many times you've seen that play out perfectly, right? High time frame, cracking correlation, low time frame, cracking correlation. You get the displacement, you get everything, and it fails. That's an indication that maybe we're not bullish, right? Because this is a high quality setup or scenario that's now being completely invalidated. So I'd say the issue here is I also saw ES building LR up over here. We're SMTing at the highs. And where this setup differs from mine is that you actually don't really have low resistance at all. What I liked a lot about mine is the generated liquidity pool, because I look for this every time when I trade. But this doesn't really have any of that. You actually just have 2 failure swings, if even you have to go to the 15 second to even see that. But on the 1 minute, it's literally just rejection weights with an SMT. So you're kind of targeting high resistance. And on top of that, now we're invalidating high quality manipulation as well. So it kind of just lacks on the targets, and you can strip away from some narrative that would help you avoid it. So I wouldn't really give this trade maybe a B plus, something like that. But definitely not the biggest fan of this. Like I genuinely would put my 15-second inversion above the 1 minute low key. Yeah. Oh, the manipulation of your stop loss. Yeah, what I was talking about that is about how we have double cracking correlation, right? High time frame cracking correlation, the low time frame cracking correlation, and it was like an instant rejection. I did really like how we ran lower, right? We're barely mitigating inside. This is the 1 hour gap, by the way. We're barely running into it, and we're instantly displacing out. So I did really like this is cool. 100%, bro. Oh my god, I'm actually starting to expand upon it. I don't want to teach all this stuff just yet, but I am starting to expand upon PO3, and I'm including a lot more time frames with it. Let's go over that. We'll go over this in a second. I wouldn't really say the 945 PO3. Maybe something else. BS did take that internal high, but let me know what your thoughts. Yeah, I'd say, okay, so this is what you should write down in your journal if you pick the 942 trade. You want to notice, obviously you want LR with your trade. Actually, I do need ES out for this. Right. Targeting sweat high with SMT. Lacks low time frame LR. Invalidated high quality manipulation. And I'd say that the thing that I want y'all to focus on the most is this part, because this actually will help you understand price, right? Going back, and I know I fucking reference this all the time, but this is when I was unprofitable. Going through my journal, you can actually look back at this shit. I was looking at previous manipulation all the time, 100%.
Holy fucking journal.
Attribute a lot of my discretion growth, I guess, to looking at manipulation, right? Manipulation over here, we finish that distribution, like we remanipulate inside of this high time frame inbox, and then do what? Redistribute. So it is this relationship. And you can use that in a different way as well, right? Seeing when high quality manipulation fails does point to the fact that maybe the narrative that this manipulation supports, which is bullishness, is likely wrong, because why would the market want to invalidate something that's high quality unless it's not an actual DOL, right? A little bit of sauce there. So this is what I write down for that. Yeah, okay, I feel like that's it. But definitely put emphasis on this, right? Looking at the market through the lens of manipulation will help you a ton. I'll get into this in a second. I'll also listen in a second. The way that I'm wanting these Q&As to be structured, that we slowly go through price. I see all the questions, and then we go to see all the questions, go to the next setup, stuff like that. So I will get all it. Started to sacrifice working time for sleep. Look, bro, get your sleep, bro. It's just gonna give you more brain fog. Sleep is absolutely, bro. I used to neglect the fuck out of my sleep. I was overall bullish, but knew we was gonna go sweep some liquidity. I had marked out. I was looking at it from the 5-minute chart. We was invert 5-minute bullish gap, create a 5-minute bearish gap. I don't remember my full frame of thought because I was in the car. Journal, but it hit exactly the way I predicted. The issue with this is that it lacks the structure that we look for with setups, right? Even though you're correct, yeah, we inverse this leg. The reason why inversing any of this doesn't hurt is that we took the low and hit a new condition, right? Hitting the new condition is the main point. We not only took these lows with an SMT, but we're now interacting with a high time frame imbalance that obviously you can see how we react to that. But you can't assume that we're just going to burn through this. You would assume that this gap actually does offer what you would want, a reaction. So once we SMT with lows, hit a high time frame imbalance, you wouldn't really want the short here. And then shorting at 934 is also kind of weird to me. Yeah, because then you're kind of shorting the break. Like this just isn't the model. I mean, it's just kind of shorting break of structure, or barely even a break. It just lacks the structure that we teach. So I can't really give you, a clear cut answer on what to improve, because it just differs so much. That is low hanging fruit. What will we read this? I'll get into this in a second. I did see this. I didn't like, again, the manipulation. Okay, y'all are just talking about fucking caffeine, bro. It's the only trade I've taken this week because of the relatively equal highs above my TP, and I didn't really care about the S&T because my bullish narrative, I considered it lag. Relatively equal highs. I mean, yeah, I'm assuming you're talking about that. I do kind of see that, yeah. It's just my thing is whenever, like, we're also diverging at 930 high, which I don't like that. I would say, I don't know. You would definitely want to pay the SMTs, because, like, you want to treat 930 high likes session liquidity. Why would you target, London highs whenever we're rejecting London highs on ES? I know, like, with my trade, we kind of have the same thing, but we didn't take it up at that point, and I also saw all this. But ES, like, perfectly manipulated, generated. Oh, that was another thing. Fuck. Okay, for the people that took 942, add this to it as well. ES generated LR where your SL is, right? I fully forgot about that, right? You can see ES is completely making, like, it's just making this shit such an easy manipulation point. So I do agree in the sense that, like, you do have somewhat valid targets, but the SMT, what ES did, it's just too much for me, and that's what I'm not the biggest fan of. That 5-minute inverse would have been a nice trade if I didn't wait for it to fully inverse. At 930? Oh, you're talking about the longs later. Isn't Meg targeting 5 minutes, so it's not valid because ES took the highs? No, it would be valid Meg, but it's less probability because ES took it. Oh, you entered on ES. Oh, you're different. Oh, you're actually different. Yeah, bro, I hate trading ES. It's low-key the same trade as me. It's like the same time frame. Consider this a C setup. Entered way too early. Oh my god. Early for sure. It would have been way better if we had that. What are your thoughts? What do you think makes this good or bad? I basically took the same setup, honestly. Like, this actually really isn't that bad. I'm pretty sure we have the same entry candle. This is at what? 9:35. I think we do have the same entry candle, bro. Yeah, we do. Yeah, this is just the same setup as mine, just different pair. But the reason why I would fade this, actually no, because you have the SMT. I was gonna say I would fade it because of all the lows here, but you have an SMT there. Literally the same trade as mine. I just don't trade ES like at all. You also have this little change the state inside the fair value that I really like having. I would not give it a C, but that's just because like it aligns with mine. But like discretion wise is low key why I think mine is good, not really mechanical. But if I had to rate yours mechanically, probably be like B plus pushing it. Yeah, okay, but it's what I mentioned earlier. I don't know if you were here, or actually I'm pretty sure you were here, but like we just invalidated high quality manipulation. We're generating a LR, and all you're doing in this scenario is targeting high resistance liquidity. Even if we have relatively equal highs here or that 5-minute gap, that's just low time frame significance. You're not aligning yourself with, I guess you can argue with the 1 hour gap. I don't know. I just didn't like the rejection off of this. Like this is exactly what you would see in a manipulation scenario. Generating low resistance, wicking the highs, rejecting them. It's the same shit here, and we invalidated high quality manipulation. That's why I really don't like this trade. And I'm also just in general not the biggest fan of mech anyway, so like maybe I'm a little biased in that sense, but I'd say with all of the shit I just said, not gonna fucking talk y'all's ear off, it definitely does make it worse, right? Manipulation being invalidated, rejecting these highs with SMTs, and all you're doing is just targeting sweat liquidity, so it's super high resistance in my opinion. Alright, let's go on to the next trade. So I think some people took this, but my concern is if it's even valid.
I think this is what I was looking at. We're going to find out. No.
Actually, that is very surprising. This is somewhat valid. I don't feel like anyone would take this just because of how awkward it was in price. The thing I did like about this setup, right, and for the people that have been here for a minute, we haven't had a scenario like this where I had to draw it out, but we did have this scenario a ton of times before. It's where price obviously does what? Well, you notice we manipulate with this low, right? We went lower, we created high resistance at this low, but then we generated that accumulation. And what you'll see price do a bunch is we actually clear out all of the LR and then leave the high resistance with new formed high resistance. So very, very awkward, right? But for the people that have been here for a bit, whenever this was happening, like day after day, I was drawing up this fucking scenario so often. But it's essentially where we leave double high resistance. So we technically don't have to take this low, as it's already done what, right? We swept all these lows, we mitigated that 1 hour gap way over here. And then it led to a distribution. The only drawback to this low is that we create this LR, but then what's the benefit? We clear the LR and started running up. So I feel like for the people that did take this, obviously, key level of doom. That's why I would hope that y'all would fade this. We inverse everything in the leg. If you did take this, bro, holy discretion. I saw a few of my friends take this, like based off of just 10 a.m. But they're like really advanced with all of their shit. So I don't think anyone did. Actually, yeah, did anyone even take that? I don't think so, to be honest. I was gonna take that, but I faded. Ain't like the low. Fair enough. Not too bad. So we shouldn't target 5 minute gaps. / one high, more pattern trade. Yeah, and I've defined this, right? I've defined this as the bare minimum mech. My entire win rate video was the first slideshow I covered was that, because it is low key, just like it's barely a valid mech, and I see that just get faded all the time. Obviously, any trades from here on out, I feel like if you took the 5 minute, I usually just don't like trading like this. I think we also had SMTs at the high at this point, if I'm not mistaken. No. My whole issue with this is I've just never approached inversions like this, like huge ass legs. I already don't trade the fucking 5 minute, but your stop loss is 160 points in this scenario. And I'm pretty sure, no, I know we didn't hit a 15, yeah, and we were approaching this 15. So I feel like taking this 5 minute entry right here is really awkward. And that's why I would fade it, simply because of how awkward it was. I would agree, yeah, we're probably going to rip bullish after this point, screw out, clearing out all this LR, leaving the high resistance with new form high resistance. But it's just not. It's too awkward to take. I've never seen Blake trade like this or Patty, and I already don't like the 5 minutes, so I know I would not trade like this. For the one guy that sent in the trade right here, right, he took this entry. I forgot who it was, but I feel like this is good discretion. But again, you're neglecting the stop loss, right? We do have this little PDI, as you can see. My issue is what do we mitigate, right? We didn't hit a 4 minute, or I think we did hit a 4 minute. It was the 5 minute we didn't hit. Yeah, we did hit a 4 minute. Honestly, if you took this trade, fucking props to you. I actually do kind of like it, even though it is just a 4 minute gap. I would definitely agree with the discretion in this sense, right? Definitely trend trading at this point. You just see complete buy-side movement targeting this old consolidation, and then you have this little low time frame PDI. This is definitely, a little bit of an iffier setup, but I was highly convicted here. I was still on the charts at this point. I got off the charts at like 10:30-ish, but I genuinely consider taking this. But I just take one trade today and I get off. But I actually do really like this setup. Really good trend trade, really good intro into discretion as well, right? Understanding that we are just in such a heavy displacement type of area for price that we're just gonna completely run this low resistance right here and then trend up all the way to here. I wonder when is the 15 minute gap made? 15 minute. And you have the 15 minute. I actually really like this trade. Who took this? Ow, fuck my teeth. Oh my god, ow. Someone sent it in earlier. Who was that, bro? I gotta give him props. I actually low-key fuck with it. Bro, it might just have to be the unnamed king. I don't know if I'll find it. I know I'm close. Never mind, bro. Fuck it. Oh, it was me. Yeah, I actually really fuck with this trade, bro. I actually really do like it. Definitely a good trend trade, dude. Props to you. I don't think we get anything after this either. And then Blake's short. Can someone send me Blake's entry? Let's go to his Instagram. Hold on, give me 1 second. Okay, he took it on the 32nd. Okay, he took this. I actually kind of. Do we even hit a gap? Why is this shit so slow, bro? Yeah, my internet's not even bad. Yeah, low-key a very heavy discretionary trade. But Blake, my understanding of Blake's approach is in the way that I really like trading from IRL to ERL. Blake, from what I've noticed, is actually really good at trading ERL back into IRL, right? You can see that we swept liquidity here. We were delivering from this 15 minute gap. And so he's actually really good at targeting the rebalance of a range, is what I've noticed. So this is probably where he's most comfortable. But again, you can see that we're kind of continuing this trade. He doesn't have the best manipulation, right? It doesn't hit a gap. We obviously do have that stop hunt back into displacement. But what I'm assuming Blake is seeing here is how we've generated liquidity. This entire leg is imbalanced, right? The way that I was saying that this trade was good is that we had so much displacement, we had so much just shit behind us, momentum, Blake is really good at then trading back into where we had that momentum. So obviously taking out these generated lows. Where was his TP? Yeah, his TP was at the 5 minute. Yeah. So I would just say Blake took this simply because of how comfortable and convicted he was, which is just where his discretion lies. And I actually really and he didn't go break even either. Wait, what? Oh, that is not what he took. What? He took this. Never fucking mind. Okay, well, same thing stands. Does it hit a gap? Okay, well. Alright, Loki, the same reasoning. I just had it mismarked and we took out this off of the 1 minute gap. Yeah, Loki just continuing this trend. Yeah, so same exact thing stands. He was just expecting the rebalance. Obviously, he does have LR at his stop loss. I do notice that. But in this scenario, and what I'm assuming he's thinking is that we're rebalancing this range, right? We're probably returning back to equilibrium because we are so overextended. Oh, yeah, and equilibrium does come that low as well. Yeah, definitely just a rebalance play, and that's just where Blake is most convicted. I actually kind of do like the trade. Would I take it? Probably not. Simply because my whole thing is LR, and I wouldn't want LR at my stop loss. But I actually do fuck with it. I actually do like it. Yeah, continuing this trend. You do have that stop hunt into instant displacement, targeting that 5 minute gap. Yeah, so definitely a good rebalance play. I actually do fuck with this. And that's okay. The more I look at this, the more I like it, right? So this trade came after we inverse these 5 minute gaps, so he knows that we're delivering off of the 15 minute, respecting bearish, disrespecting bullish, and all he's looking for is another, scenario of that. Respecting bearish on the 1 minute, disrespecting bullish in the form of this 30-second gap and rebalancing that rate. I actually really fuck with this trade. The issue I was going to bring up earlier, because I thought it was this one, I was going to say I didn't like how we had it, how we didn't close through the 5 minute gap yet, but this trade actually comes after we close through it, so that's really nice. Because he's combining a lot of strong confluences with this. So even though he has the LR, he does have the higher time frame confirmations of respecting the 15 minute, disrespecting the 5 minute, and then again, we're doing that same thing on the low time frame, going for a rebalance play. I actually really do fuck with that. Ronan Clazy right now? Low key. Yeah, I gotta get that shit on my mouth. Jesus Christ. Took the same short, but I entered off the 30-second fair value at 15.36. Bro, oh my god, where are we? 15.30 with this, assuming 10.36. My issue with that is you're actively trading within the 5 minute. Let me go back to MQ. And this, okay, and this is why y'all shouldn't be leaning into discretion too much, is because there's no definable edge yet. Being respected. So you enter here. I mean, it's not the worst. That's just discretion. I don't really have a rating for it, obviously, because it's not within like the mechanical entry model. But I would say just watch out with like I would say his is better in the sense that like we've now invalidated these bullish conditions. But I do agree with the fact that yeah, we are rejecting off of the 15 minute. You can actually see we have. I really like whenever you see price sweep a high and then instantly run. I do really like that. But what matters most is that you're highly convicted at this point. I'm assuming you're seeing what he saw with these open imbalances, going for that rebalance play. So I wouldn't say the trade is bad, but I also don't have a definable rating for it simply because of what type of entry it is. It is just a fair value gut tap. But that was after we then put in an SMT, so you can't fully disregard it at the highs as well. I mean. I used it to target the 15 minute above. I was really convinced we were going to 15 minute. Yeah, and that's what matters. You were really convinced, so it probably jumped off at the chart at you. And I would agree. Like, bro, I actually really wanted that trade as well. Like, had I not taken this trade, I would have taken it, or taken the trade over here. I probably would have taken this one. I don't think I would have taken Blake's though. Honestly, I've kind of come around to the 4 minute con. I actually do kind of like the 4 minute con. The whole thing about it is that you want high time frame sponsorship. What do you think about taking these short at 10:40? We had an SMT respecting the 5 minute. I'm assuming you mean the 5 minute inverse. Yeah. It's basically the same as Blake's, like the same reasons. My only issue here is where your stop loss would be. That's all I would really be curious about. But for the same reasons Blake's or the trade that Blake took is good. This is also good, right? Disrespecting bearish, respecting bullish, and then expecting that rebalance play because obviously a huge inbounds leg is going to do what? It's going to fucking rebalance. It's super obvious. So yeah, I'm definitely a fan of this one as well. Yeah, literally like the same quality. Yeah, I seen that. He got like fucking $50. I didn't take any trade. What do you think of my reason? I think volume was good, but didn't like the setups. Pre-market price. I didn't like how the closure and how many points that was. Yeah, that's another thing. I don't like whenever my stop loss is super fat, right? Like the issue with this one is that your stop loss is damn near 100 points, and the issue with the long right here, like if you took the 5 minute long up to the 15 minute gap, your stop loss can only be 160 points, or like maybe 100 if you fucking put it here. So yeah, because I go off of data, right? Because data proves what historical data can have somewhat of an edge on what will happen next. And I've just never really seen myself perform with huge ass stop losses like that, right? Because it is a low time frame model. You can use it on the high time frame, but I just obviously don't have discretion with that. So I'd say that's valid, yeah. To fade, not enter. That's another thing. This is actually also good. Your discretion should start off with fading and then lead into maybe breaking the rules of the entry pattern, right? Like with what I did. Yeah, we didn't have a clear cut inversion, but everything is still there. You still have the high quality manipulation. You still have the high quality DOL. Your entry pattern just isn't pitch perfect. So that's actually another good thing I should have said.
All right, I'm gonna pause it after that. Go back, re-listen to that, take that all in, because that's huge. That's fucking huge, man. I mean, just going back into the DMs, and like I said, go back to what he just said, and start off using their discretion by fading setups, and then later on start using their discretion by taking a trade base of it by breaking your entry pattern. The inversion's not too clean, but we're on a very big bullish. No, we're bullish on the higher time frame, very bullish on the higher time frame. But my 3 minute inversion took 5 candles to inverse. It's like, dude, we're so bullish, and that takes time. Like that's how you build that. It comes with time, and that's how you can use your discretion.
It's basically the same trade as Blake Cookie. Daily backtesting videos daily backtesting videos would make me fucking insane, bro. I hate backtesting. I have like 8 hours of backtesting content already made, and I've hated every single minute of it, bro. I don't like backtesting. I don't like bro, it's so boring, and it look at be pissing me off. So even though, because someone else just said this, that like ES, or that we have SMT that right here, right, which is correct. This SMT then gets stretched up here. This is still like important to me, because now you're, for the same reason that your stop loss is good, it's the same reason why your TP is bad. It's just ranging in between SMTs, and the fact that you still have LR here is so bad. And you just saw an SMT, right? You just saw a previous high quality SMT. The reason I was saying earlier, right? High quality manipulation that fails gives you an insight into what high time frame narrative is actually doing, right? So if you see high quality bullish manipulation fail, that's an indication that maybe high time frame narrative isn't fucking bullish. So even though we make another SMT here, it's not really super significant to me, because we're still rejecting off of the SMTs up here, and your TP is high resistance in my opinion. So yeah, all this LR here is generating actually. Got a fat ass New Day opening P. What is P? I don't see the New Day opening up. I don't think we had one. Oh, maybe up here. No, because I got rebounds. Yeah, no, there's not really one for today. When does high time frame sponsorship matter or get validated? Like if we're looking for 1 hour or Madden Premium or something. So high time frame sponsorship, of course, always matters, but it's more in the sense of your continuation trades, right? So if you're taking a 5-minute con, you need to have that 5-minute gap created from a 1 hour, right? So like let's say, well, it's literally just this formation. We run to the 1 hour gap over here. The displacement out of the 1 hour creates a 5-minute gap. If you have no 1 hour gap, you have no 5-minute con. Obviously, yeah, we can make a 5-minute con, but it's not valid because it's not sponsored via the high time frame. And the reason where this would become invalidated is whenever we take another con. Like there was a day last week, or maybe like a week before that, I'm pretty sure it was last week, but it's where I saw people taking a 5-minute con from a 5-minute con, but then they're saying like, oh, but this is sponsored via high time frame. But this is where we start becoming overextended in price, right? Whenever you see low time frame gap into low time frame gap into low time frame gap, it shows that price is not sponsored. Why? Because the only thing that sponsored this move, right? You can't cope and say like, oh, this entire thing sponsors this whole leg. No, we make it retrace into a new displacement. So this displacement that creates or fair value gap is not sponsored via the 1 hour. It's sponsored another 5-minute gap. So that's whenever it becomes invalidated, right? Actually, I'll go and just mark this out. This is valid, right? This 5-minute off of the 1 hour. This 5-minute off of the 5-minute is not valid, and that's where price overextended, and you catch a lot of avoidable losses. I'll bring up people on stage in a second. I just want to touch a band for real, bro. Oh, he's talking from. Oh. I mean, this will just think for tomorrow. I don't really look at shit overnight. I thought he was talking about from today. Because price didn't sweep Asia. So this is the thing I was saying earlier. Levon probably remembers it because Levon's been in here for a fucking minute. But there's a lot of scenarios where we would have high resistance be printed, right? We would manipulate up, but then we'd have this issue of generating LR. Once we clear out this LR, these highs right here, this high and this high are now both high resistance. Even though one did not sweep this, or like this high didn't sweep that, it actually doesn't matter because price doesn't have to sweep this. This low right here, Asia low, sweat out all of this liquidity and rebounds inside this 1 hour gap, obviously with all this other stuff. So it doesn't have to be swept because we already manipulated it. Of course, this is that scenario earlier we were talking about, having A++ scenarios, right? Us not sweeping Asia does offer the risk of, running lower and sweeping, but technically we don't have to. So you would assume the risk that we already swept out all the LR with an SMT, by the way. We appease the daily PO3 on top of that. We technically don't have to run lower unless it's an A+++ thing, so it's not really needed. But I remember like a while
Hear that? That's
I was
huge.
drawing this scenario out like every fucking day. Y'all remember like how recently the market's been distributing off of like these whack ass 930 opens, right? Like we'll edge a liquidity pool or we'll not hit a high time frame imbalance, but then start running. And how I've drawn that out so many times. And just a few weeks ago, I was drawing this out a bunch of times. This is why it matters so much to journal as well, because without journaling, you're not going to understand the current market conditions, right? Stuff changes. This stuff will happen really a lot within, maybe the span of a few weeks and then stop. And the same thing with 930 Judases that are really weird. It'll happen a bunch and then, become different. Markets go through these whack-ass cycles. I'm not going to act like I fucking coded the market where I know this shit like the back of my hand. But I do notice from mentoring, like, I'm not going to lie, bro, apart from obviously like the benefit of just, teaching, I get to know market conditions so well, bro. I know the trades that are failing. I know the trades that are succeeding. I'm being asked about my own trade, so I have to explain my trade in a way that makes sense. And if my trade doesn't make sense, then guess what? I'm not going to take it. So, like, me being on the charts all day, fucking teaching all this shit actually has made me a better trader, and I adapt to market conditions way faster because I'm looking at them all the fucking time. So this used to happen a fuck ton, right? You go back to the old Q&As, maybe like a month ago. I think it was in October. Yeah, check out any Q&A in October. Oh my god, sorry, I was fucking my back. Check out any Q&A in October, and you'll probably see me draw something out exactly like this. So it's that same scenario, right? We don't have to clear out the high resistance here because it is already high resistance. It's already manipulated low or manipulated high. So once we clear this LR, this can completely be respected. It's just an A++ thing. 6-7. My god. Was the leg that manipulated makes that high resistance low? Yes, exactly. But can you give me a quick spill on the 942 long? And no worries, bro. So what I said about the 942 long and why I think it was avoidable. So this is what I wanted y'all to write down for your notes. Fuck, what was it? It was, oh my gosh. I know it was SMT at 930 high. I know the main things that I wanted you to look at was high quality manipulation at 935. At 935 failed. So what I want you to focus on with this second part is essentially looking at the market through the lens of manipulation, right? Whenever you see high quality manipulation, so we had that 1 hour gap with an SMT, by the way. So we had a high time frame cracking correlation and a low time frame cracking correlation that led to somewhat displacement. This fails, right? So whenever you see high quality manipulation that would, like if you're bullish in this scenario, so you're assuming the high time frame narrative is bullish, you just saw high quality manipulation in alignment of that fail, and that is in itself a confluence. That is in itself an invalidation of something. So make sure that you're paying attention to that as well. Another thing I noticed, oh yeah, it was no LR. Well, fuck, now my fucking red box moves, bro. I marked out no LR targeting swept highs, bare minimum MAC vibes. So what I mean by this as well is this does not exactly align with what bare minimum MAC is, but it does give me those bare minimum MAC vibes, right? You're targeting a 1 minute swing, a swing that already rebalanced, a swing that swept liquidity, printed an SMT, and then also invalidated that high time frame or that high quality manipulation. So this is what I write down for that. But if you go back in the recording, I'll upload this instantly, and I have the uploading from Tuesday as well. The reason I didn't upload Tuesdays is I was jet lagged. Like I was technically doing it like 3 a.m. my time because of I was obviously overseas, so like I was like 6 hours ahead. So I'll upload those both today. But this is basically all you need, really. Yeah. Okay, perfect. I basically wrote down the same shit, if not better. Okay, well, the first thing I noticed, and now obviously I'm biased against the 5 minute, right? I hate the 5 minute. Wait, actually, go ahead and screenshot that as well. Ronan wants to keep that. Let me leave that up for like 5 seconds. Oh my gosh, bro. Obviously, the thing that I can notice about this first is no stop hunt. I really like inversions with the stop hunt. I already don't like the 5 minute in general. But my issue here is that we're rejecting this 15-minute gap, and you're fading that with the 5 minute. One thing I do want you to notice, and this doesn't have to do with the setup itself, but this just has to do with market conditions in general. Whenever you see price distribute a lot to sell side and then back to buy side, oh, and then didn't we take external high at this point? Yeah, we did. Yeah. Another thing is that you're targeting high resistance, high time frame, right? Up here, SMTs. So that's just one thing to notice, right? You're technically targeting high resistance. You are aligning yourself with like decent structure, I would say, obviously continuing this displacement, but you're targeting high resistance. And on top of that, you don't really want to trade whenever the market has distributed a lot to the sell side, back up to the buy side, back to the sell side, and then you want another run back to the buy side. Market goes through cycles, right? We accumulate for a reason. We accumulate to generate orders in order anyway, for us to actually make these moves. Once market accumulates, we fuck the accumulation, go to sell side, and then we have like nothing down here, go back to buy side. Why would you want to trade whenever we go back to sell side and you want to go back to buy side? You know, it's kind of like asking too much of price in my opinion, and I would catch a ton of losses like this because we've already moved, you know, a few hundred points in either direction off of open, right? Maybe 300 odd points off of 930. Then I think it was 100, damn, and then 200 points back to buy side, and then what? 150 back down. Yeah, 150 back down. And what's your TP at? Okay, actually, very concerned. 1-to-1 TP. I fuck with that. Heavy. You get double points for that. So you're not being greedy in that sense. But yeah, I'd say the main reason why this lost is because of what I just said. I think you're asking for too many market moves. Definitely pay attention to the SMT at the highs. No stop hunt, but I'm not really going to give you shit for that. That's just like what I really like to see on top of the 5 minute. But yeah, I'd say the SMT and then asking for too many market moves is definitely what's wrong with this setup. And you can see we actually go back into an accumulation phase, right, gaining those orders so we can actually move the market. So yeah, the setup isn't too bad, but I think you're asking too much. And then on top of it, the SMT definitely makes it worse. The regenerate LR. I'm going to get inversion happened at 11 a.m. That's another thing as well. Yeah, this is essentially like entering on the 10 a.m. candle. I didn't even notice that. That's definitely another thing to thought, but you already have that. I have that in the cons. Instant 5 minute fair value gap. I do like that. Yeah, 10:30 did generate LR. And this is just what 11 a.m. does, right? There's a reason that you don't want to trade 11 a.m. It will do this fuck ass shit to you, bro. Genuinely. And notice, right? We accumulate orders. Now it is kind of low time frame. I wouldn't really apply the logic to obviously the low time frame as much, but we accumulate, manipulate, and then we actually start getting these moves. But then we have this fuck ass like, bro, this is so whack. This is just 11 a.m. BA. I saw Dodgy take this. I actually don't like the way Dodgy trades, and I would not. Whenever I take an inversion that Dodgy took, not hating on Dodgy, I mean, bro's profitable, everyone has their own discretion. It's kind of like how I'm not really a fan of like the recent trades that Patty takes. It makes sense to him, that's all that really matters. But I'm not really the biggest fan of Dodgy. Was my stop loss an issue? I put it at C and got stopped out. No, I would say that your stop loss is an issue. I'd say it's the targets and then asking too much out of market. I wouldn't really have a set rating for it. Maybe like, given the narrative, it low key like kind of pushes C, like especially with the market move thing. Like you do not want to ask for too many distributions. I'm pretty sure you already sent this in. Oh, it teleported me way the fuck up here. Yeah, but definitely don't sacrifice sleep. Holy shit, I teleported. Oh, because yeah, never mind. But yeah, I give it like a pushing B, but that's just kind of the narrative part. Holy fuck. Let's say we tap in a high time frame and form a stop point, but don't inverse, but then form another stop point. Yo, dead ass, can you draw this out? But then form another stop point and an inversion. Is that less likely because it's the second stop point, the first one got validated like today? But don't inverse. No. So the reason why this wouldn't matter, so this is what you're drawing out. As long as, we can have as many sweeps as many sweeps. Now, obviously, there is something as like too many sweeps, right? Because then it just turns into disrespecting versus respecting. But let's say, in your scenario, you have that first stop point inside the gap. It does not become less quality up until we inverse, right? So up until we start disrespecting bullish, obviously in a bear scenario, does it become an issue whenever we constantly have to resweep and then resweep again, right? The same logic as to why I said like high quality manipulation failed down here. The same thing here. But it's understanding that we can still be in a manipulation phase. So up until you can assume we have distribution, and you can only assume we're going to have distribution whenever we start disrespecting these bullish PD arrays. Right, so as long as we're respecting this, you cannot say that we're in a distribution phase. But if we do inverse this gap and then we resweep that again, it is somewhat of an issue because now it has shown that we are in somewhat of a distribution phase and we're continuing to disrespect that. So as long as we don't inverse, right, because you're saying we form a stop point but don't inverse, I wouldn't really care about that because I would just understand it as, okay, we're still manipulating inside of this gap and we haven't entered what I would assume is the distribution phase. You said it was bad. Yeah, but the whole thing is that it's bad because we had that distribution. We started reacting off of it and had the inversion. But as long as we're not in that, like, as long as we're not in the distribution phase, then we can manipulate as much as we want. All right, I'll catch you later, bro. Are you saying the bullish bias is invalid because the S&P swept the target high on ES? I'm assuming this is for the 5-minute trade, and yes, you would assume that the bullish bias played out because on highly correlated assets, whenever one sweeps another, or whenever one pair sweeps liquidity pools, you would assume that both of them swept it. So yeah, you would assume that your bullish bias has played it out, right? It doesn't mean that it's invalid. It means that it's already played out. It's just not on the NASDAQ mirror, or NASDAQ, whatever. Yeah, no, I also put a lot of emphasis on that. It's like a session liquidity pool. I do it the same way. Because I saw it as a time discount. What do you mean, bro, wake up? Yeah, because we're above it. Yeah, I'm just kidding. Probably would. Not sure if you went over this, but I think, actually it's perfect that I didn't already cover it. Oh yeah, you took this long. Okay. I didn't feel good about getting that. So I faded. Okay, yeah, so the 5-minute, what I said about this is like heavy discretionary. 1 hour gap. Oh, I'm assuming you're talking about this one way over here. So what I said that I liked about this trade is how we have no low resistance, right? People were talking about Asia low and how we should have taken it. We technically don't have to take Asia low, as it's already a manipulated liquidity pool, and we diverged at this old consolidation. So we already had that. I was saying that this 1 minute long, and I had a few friends take this. The friend being like fucking people that are like obsessed with like PO3 and shit, this like manipulation like how I am. I saw a decent of them, basically fucking 2 of them, take this entry, and I actually really do like it. It is a really good rebalance play, right? Targeting these generated swing highs. I'm pretty sure we do have a 5-minute gap as well. Yeah, just above that. Yeah, 5-minute here, 5-minute here. So really good rebounds play. I do fuck with this trade pretty heavy. As for a rating, I'd probably give it like an A, but that's like a very discretionary A. And I doubt that like a lot of people, not saying you, but I doubt a lot of people could identify exactly why it's an A. And I think that's also important, right? You want to take the trade and you want to know why. So even if this is fucking A+++, if you didn't know it was A+++, then it doesn't matter. But I do really like this trade. And then my issue with the 5-minute, you said you took the 5-minute? Tape red buff, okay. So what I said about the 5-minute is that in this scenario, you really don't want to have these super fat stop losses because you don't really have any other choice. You do actually tighten your stop loss, but the issue with this is that you are putting your stop loss at an easy point for price to retrace into. So we could be perfectly bullish, but what do we do in a bullish trend? Well, bullish trends retrace. So even if your bias is correct, even if your DOL will play out, we can easily retrace, not invalidate your assumption of price, run your stop loss, and then take your TP. So that's my only issue with here. What I noted in this scenario is you actually had a low time frame entry to your DOL, right? You on the 30-second. There was actually this con basically off the same thing you took, but on the low time frame, right? We hit like a 4-minute gap right here. We had a little PDI targeting this old consolidation and that 15-minute gap that I believe was right here. So basically the same trade, but now you have a better stop loss. You're still in alignment with all that displacement, and you're even though we do have the 5-minute down here, at least it's a little bit more structured in the sense that we did retrace into something, and you're not just randomly entering on like fat candles as well. I wouldn't really give it anything bad. I would just say that you want to get better structure for the 5-minute, and then the 1-minute I do actually really like. But yeah, I'd say both trades are good. 5-minute structure, 1-minute would definitely just be like heavy discretion. Our continuation's fine if we have a high time frame session sweep. Like for today, we swept London and edged Asia because Asia was high resistance, and we swept London. Would the earlier long be valid? Yeah, but high time frame continuations are fine if we have a high time frame session sweep, because you can also assume that a high time frame or a sweep of session liquidity doesn't always lead to a reversal. Sometimes we do break out of ranges. Sometimes we do continue, right? Continuation off of that. Not every session liquidity sweep leads to a reversal. Sometimes it leads to a break. Yeah, this is the trade I was talking about. A plus to me, SMT, yeah, definitely agree that I was due for a rebalance. What does Meg target? Yeah, Meg targets 5/15-minute, and you went for a 1-to-1. How do we get a con? So you get a continuation 5/15-minute gap. Specifically, the 5-minute gap you get from high time frame sponsorship, right? So we enter a 1-hour gap. The displacement out of that 1-hour gap leads to the creation of a 5-minute gap. That is a valid 5-minute, and then 50-minute cons can just do whatever. Not a bunch. Okay. DMG, my fault. Fuck me, I guess. Yeah, I actually low-key fuck with this. Yeah, and then we have that huge ass SMT as well. Alright, I'll catch you later, bro. So this, if price taps high time frame key level, doesn't stop and then closes below the inversion, and later comes back for another stop, that second stop is less likely to give a consent. I wouldn't say it's less likely to give a consent, but it's something to notice, right? It shows that price is now disrespecting high quality manipulation. That's what I would say. But I guess that is also less likely. Actually, no, keep that exactly as you said. Yeah. 10:02 is valid entry. You don't need to wait for the 5-minute close. You don't need to wait for the 5-minute close because you're in that low time frame entry or low time frame legs. Yeah, I'll bring up people on stage in a second. Okay. Appreciate the clarification and notes on the 942 trade. Got a little tilted about it, but I didn't revenge or do stupid shit. Happy that I'm seeing results day by day, slowly but surely. Peace out. Yeah, it's literally just a learning experience, and you're taking it as such because you didn't crash out. Like that's the main thing. Like fuck whatever trade you took, bro. You're gonna forget about the trade in a month anyway, so fuck the trade. You definitely played it correctly. Like the habit that you solidified today is gonna be way better than if you just caught a win, you know. So definitely good on that. When can you know when to wait for the 5-minute close and when to wait for the 1-minute inversion? Well, it's just about understanding trading legs. So if the 5-minute leg is like this, right? Obviously, you would have to wait for the 5-minute gap to be closed through. But the addition of data, right, more time frames, is that we can actually see these low time frame legs run lower and give you that valid entry up to the 5 minutes. So even though, yeah, most people would wait for the 5-minute close, you can catch an entry towards said 5-minute by using the low time frame, right? So in this scenario, the 1-minute, I think the 5-minute was like above this high. The 1-minute offers exactly that, right? You can enter here. I'm pretty sure we had like a 4-minute gap above this high, but you can enter on this low time frame leg, right? So if the 5-minute, I'll go mark it out, right? Yeah, okay, that was the 5-minute, perfect. So the 5-minute is right here. You would have to wait for the 5-minute close. But what goes on in this little stop hunt? Well, if the 5-minute bam, right? 5 minutes looking like this. The low time frame offers this little extra manipulation leg that we can then trade off of. So that's why you wouldn't need to wait for it.
I think we can end this here. I feel like that was pretty much it.
Every losing trade is an opportunity to refine your system. Like the best.
Dude, these calls have so much sauce.
Best loser wins. Stage for stage. Holy foot.
Hey, what's up?
What's up, man?
I hate to keep making you repeat yourself, but I really want to understand the S&T with the 942 long making it valid because, from what I gather, it's because that was a 930 high, and that's like a valid level. But what I really can understand is like the draw there, was that high at whatever 730, and ES could take that because I think the S&Ts that matter at the draw, and my draw was all the way at that daily gap. So I just didn't even enter my mind to think about that S&T because I hadn't taken that yet. Is that am I right in understanding it's not about it didn't take that external high there? It's about the fact that was 930, and that's why the S&T mattered.
Yeah, it's a part of the fact that it's 930, but it's also what the SMT led to, right? So like how I was saying that the high quality manipulation down here got invalidated after we put this in, that's something to notice because it provides narrative. So even if the SMT isn't at your external target where you would ultimately want the high time frame distribution to go, this SMT is now actually doing something to price. It made us invalidate high, because like you were bullish at this point, but high quality manipulation, right? We had a cracking correlation on the 1-hour time frame with that gap, and then as well low time frame cracking correlation. So you have perfect manipulation that should play out to your high time frame narrative. But this SMT, after being put into place, and then we sweep this high right here, it led to a distribution, which is super significant. So even if it's not at the external, this gives an insight into, okay, maybe my narrative isn't correct. Because that logic applies, like, okay, the SMT only matters up here, only is like significant, assuming it's correct. But this would kind of give you that, okay, maybe my narrative at this exact moment isn't correct. Did I explain
Yeah.
that? All right, then.
Yeah, that's great. And then was a PDI kind of thing, chopping one, and then there was an inverse, it hit the target, and then it dumped it, and people were still trying to catch longs up to it. And the main reason was like, well, we just saw a high quality fail, like why would we want to keep doing that? And it makes a lot of sense. The reason I couldn't see that same situation here is because that I didn't view it as like because there was no inverse. I thought, and I had to go down to the 15-second, which I never, I don't think anyone's like supposed to do that. Or whatever. It doesn't matter. Like, what can you expound upon that?
It's more so the fact that this manipulation started to play out to an extent, right? Like you can see 930 use that manipulation to take set highs.
Okay.
Where am I? Hold on 5 minutes. So like even if it didn't lead to an inversion, it still led to what we would assume is distribution, right? So it was kind of what I was saying with Chu earlier. What he wrote up here. What he wrote right here. Yes, like once it leads to a distribution. So it doesn't necessarily have to be an inversion because distribution obviously takes like multiple forms, right? Changing the state, respecting aligning bias, PD arrays, all that type of stuff. But once I saw it start rejecting out of the 1 hour, respecting this SMT right here, that's when I would assume, okay, this should be the low put in place, assuming that high time frame narrative is bullish. So even without the inversion, this little run up would kind of give me ideas like, okay, there's no point returning back to this low,
Okay. And the last thing, I don't know if I need you to yell at me or whatever.
Yeah.
But maybe I need it. But like I'm low-key just worrying about my drawdown on my fundeds, like a little bench. I took that loss in 942. I took a stupid ass trade on Monday. Like I don't even want to talk about it. It was just like a inversion off like a random low with info that I got. Garbage.
Yeah.
And I'm just like I took that loss today. I'm like, oh fuck. I'm like 1.5% in drawdown. I got 3%. So I don't know if you can yell at me being a bitch or because I really want to size down. Like I do not want to blow these.
I think sizing down shows that you're attached to the account, right? So I actually have a question for you. If you blow this account, are you going to quit trading?
No.
Exactly, right? So like what's really the big deal? You kind of, and I was like this as well. Like I wanted to size down. I really wanted to preserve the accounts that I passed because like I saw that as my opportunity of profitability. But if I fail this account, for one, I'm not going to quit trading. So why should I care in the first place? That's kind of like what led me into detachment. But at the end of the day, drawdown is drawdown. It's just a number on a fucking screen. The only thing that actually gives significance or importance to that number is you. And the benefit of that is you also control the significance or the importance. You're giving it importance right now by caring about it, wanting to de-risk, obviously tripping about it, like you coming up on stage telling me all this stuff now. You're giving it importance, but with that you can strip away the importance that you're giving it. So it's really just understanding, like think about the loss that you took 3 months ago. You probably don't remember it and it's not a big deal. It's going to be the same thing with this funded. Approach it in terms of having a growth mindset, wanting to learn, rather than like seeing it as like an opportunity to be profitable or like kind of prove yourself getting that payout. It's a part of the process. I've blown countless fundeds and I cared about blowing that funded so much. But in hindsight, all that worrying I did, all that, getting in my head, planting these seeds of doubt, planting these seeds of just bullshit, didn't benefit me long term. And had I just thought about it in the sense of, 3 months from now, I'm probably going to be on a fresh funded, I won't be in drawdown, so why trip about it now type of thing. Thinking about it, stuff in terms of like long-term scaling or like long-term trading definitely did help me like cope with any current situation I was dealing with.
No, that's facts, bro. I appreciate that. And if I had to be real with myself, it's like, and everyone I told this to is telling me to get a job. And I'm just being a lazy fuck, and I really don't want to get another job. But I also hate, like, that's why I'm so attached to it. I was like, I know the answer. Just like, it'll take what it takes for me to be, like, willing to do something for work and just drawing on my savings. I think that's, like, probably the root of it.
Because that'll also just add extra stress, like, because then you almost need trading as an income source, and that does no benefit, right? That just makes you more puts you in a mindset where you're trying to gain something. But if you have like that, if you're in a comfortable spot, obviously having a guaranteed income at the end of every week or every 2 weeks, I actually would guarantee that it makes your trading better because you're not going to be pressured into anything, or you're not going to feel like you're on a timer or like, okay, my savings will last me another 3 months. But if you have a job, supplying that shit, it'll obviously stretch out. You're not going to have that time thing anymore, and it'll also help with the attachment to money. You won't really be like stressing about it as much. I would definitely get a job, bro. I'm gonna be with you.
Gotcha. You need an assistant?
I mean, shit, bro. You can always reach out to PB, see if they need anything, honestly. But
dude, I'll take $5 an hour. That'll be fine.
I mean, shit, bro. Reach out to Braden and see what's up with it.
Alright, I appreciate it.
Yeah, no problem, dude. Bro, low-key, I was peeping. Whenever I talk to y'all, I actually do hand movements IRL. Like, I'm like expressing myself like with body language, but y'all don't see any of that shit, bro. Oh my god, 5 people, bro. Fuck. What's up, bro?
Hello, Ronan.
It's good, G.
Bro, I wanted to bring up the 1 minute long at 942 again.
Mm-hmm.
So basically, I don't agree with the whole like notion that you were going with, saying that like it was high time, it was like manipulation getting like invalidated. I don't know if you saw, but we on that leg that we swept that internal low, we tapped into an unfilled 15-minute, and the way we just displaced off of it, we like instantly inversed that 1 minute. And I also just don't see like that SMT with that high like really meaning anything, just that was also a high that became a 5 minute fair value gap as well. And then we had data highs, and I'm still bullish higher time frame just because of that unfilled daily that we had. So I kind of just wanted to see that get traded too as well. Yeah, I just think it's like that manipulation thing is kind of like flawed logic just because I've seen so many, especially with it being like a 15-second swing. Like, if you didn't take that trade, I don't think I would have ever like noticed that 15-second or like even considered it like failed manipulation. It's just kind of like so low time frame, and the fact that I've seen like similar setups like that like play out where we're in a huge like high time frame PDR and we just kind of manipulate lower into a more discounted like lower time frame PDR like that 15-minute and then get that reaction. I just feel like it's kind of like just because you took that 15-second, you can sort of say that okay, yeah, it's high time frame manipulation. But I feel like if you didn't really like, you wouldn't consider it in a way. I don't really know. But I just see like this situation happen so much in backtesting where like we sweep the internal low and then deliver. I think it's kind of just like I don't know. I think it just applies in this scenario. I mean, you won, I lost, so like, but
well, winning a trade and losing a trade like doesn't really mean anything. Like even if I like you can always win a bad setup. But my whole thing with this, even if the 15-second didn't occur, this manipulation at these lows still led to some form of a run. Even if it wasn't major on Nasdaq, it still led to a distribution on ES. And my thing with this 5-minute gap, you are correct, right? Like you would still expect the 5-minute to be rebalanced, but I've defined this, right? Like it is the bare minimum mech. Like it's not directly aligned with it. Like it's not bare minimum. But I've seen so many mech trades over because I've been coaching with PB since like fucking March. And I literally had to define this because I saw so many losses. So even though it's valid, even though you would still expect the 5-minute to be traded into, there's still a valid probability. Using where the fuck is the chart? Using data, right? Obviously the shit I've seen. Targeting a singular 1-minute swing, especially one that delivered off of an SMT as well as swept liquidity, automatically makes it less probability to rebound. Yes, the probability exists, but us going to this 5-minute is less probability or has less probability because of what happened, right? Narrative-wise, SMTing at 9:30, it led to a reaction. It also swept out liquidity, and you have no low resistance. So it's really just like a rebounds play that just kind of gets knocked down in terms of win rate because of what happened. And yeah.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I still don't really see it.
I mean, that's totally fine. Like you can disagree. Like that's totally fine.
Yeah, I mean, like that like whole like move just seems like so low time frame. And I mean, like you can look at that like manipulation leg that happened after that ended up stopping me out. Like it literally runs to nothing and then reacts higher and delivers to the draw. So like, I think that was just like kind of like the market just being retarded.
Well,
just, like,
yeah, but
like,
we ran the accumulation, so I feel like that's different.
I mean, yeah, but I mean, we left for 3 below that age. I don't know. But yeah, like we tapped into
But that was the high
that's
resistance.
why like I really liked it. That instant reaction off of it as well.
No, I do agree with you. But the thing with the manipulation, like, is it doesn't matter, about the 15-second. What matters is that this manipulation, this cracking correlation, led to a distribution that was then ran back through, right? So it's just like that's the point of it. Like, if the 15-second inversion didn't happen, I'd still say the same thing. We do have a cracking correlation on the high time frame where reacting out of the 1-hour gap, and that 1-hour gap just failed to what seems to be, a lack of manipulation, right? So even if this is, not perfect manipulation, the fact that it's beating something sponsored by the high time frame is something to take into account. I'd like to hear your take against that as well.
Okay, but would you say like, because you can say that distributes, but like into what, like 9:30 high, okay, sure. But then there's also data highs above, and then, again, like for me, like with the way I look at it, like from this point, like like where you are in the chart right now on NQ, there's no reason for me to be bearish. Like, sure, we can have that SMT, but like, what is it going to deliver to? Like, we're still respecting that 1 hour, we're still respecting that 15-minute. I see like no reason. Like,
exactly.
Like,
I actually agree with you. The whole point is that manipulation that isn't even super high quality is now beating your high time frame key level. That's my point. That's why this is less significant. You're entirely correct, right? This manipulation up here is completely dog shit. It's not an external high. We didn't take out the data highs. It's not really that good. But the fact that manipulation that isn't even great beat what is great manipulation is something to take into account. And that wasn't my only like there's other reasons like to the setup in general, but I know that we're just talking about this. But the fact that manipulation beat what we would assume is high quality, right? A cracking correlation on the 1 hour, a cracking correlation on the low time frame with that whole AMD, but I won't bring that up because that's the 15-second. The fact that lost is something to take into account because you would assume with strong narrative, you would beat weak narrative, right? But the fact that weak narrative or weak SMT that's supported by weak narrative beats this, that's what I'm saying, right? So you're completely valid. But my point, like the way that I see it, is the fact that this is winning and invalidating this is something that will lower the probability of a distribution. Because why would this fail? Why would this fail to something that is insignificant unless narrative doesn't agree with it?
Okay, I can see what you're saying, kind of, but like, I would, there's like right at that S&P like low that you consider high manipulation, there's an unfilled 15-minute, like literally like, I think maybe like 2-3 ticks under it. And then with that resweep, we end up like trading into that, and it's again within like a 1 hour fair value gap. So I felt like maybe that like, price can do whatever it wants, and like you can still get that resweep, and the draw just seems so much clearer high time frame. I wouldn't even consider that losing. Just if we started displacing off of it and then started displacing lower, yeah, sure, I wouldn't
I mean, I see what you're talking about with the 15-minute, but and you are correct, right? Right, like we run into an unmitigated gap. Like I like manipulation in unmitigated gaps, but this is really just the same thing. Like as the 1 hour, you're just adding an extra gap. It actually does add significance in the sense that we instantly rip up. Like I see that. But it's just like the 15-minute won't completely change that narrative because we technically are already supported by a higher time frame imbalance. So that doesn't like completely flip it. And I'm not saying like the trade is complete dog shit. I'm just saying that like this type of stuff is something to look for because it does lower the probability. I'm not saying the setup is F. I think I gave like a B plus. But it's something to like. That's like why I'm saying it lost. Right. It's because of these things, and that's something to look out for. Especially the 5-minute like just for mech plays in general. Watch out for 1-minute swing highs. Or 5-minute gaps where the swing is a singular 1 minute or oh my god on the 1 minute it's a singular swing and it swept liquidity. Like if you've seen the win rate slideshow I did, like this is exactly what is defined. It's a completely valid setup, but it's a trap that has a lower probability. That's my whole thing. Totally valid, but given the context of it, it lowers the probability in the long run.
Okay, so you're saying that if the internal high, if we like in that situation with the 1 minute, we get like a high probability manipulation, and then we kind of just wick lower and disrespect that, the entry following it is going to be more or less probable.
Yeah, because
especially if there's like one internal high.
Wait, you're talking about like to the buy side or to the sell side?
Buy side.
Yeah, because like now this is higher resistance. There's less of a reason to go here because even if it's a 5-minute gap, that's still a low time frame imbalance and therefore has less significance in general. And now that it's a swept liquidity pool, now that it's a liquidity pool that has an SMT at it as well, you kind of stack up all this shit that ultimately leads to less probability. Of course, the probability still is there. It's just less. And to me, I don't want to enter on those types of setups.
Okay. But I'm back to this and let you know, bro.
Alright, bet. You got good questions, bro. You remind me of Jacob, low key. Yeah, I actually fuck with him.
Did you recognize me or no?
I want to say. I don't know why I want to say Poppy Saab. I have no idea.
Yo, who's that, bro?
Bro, I don't know. Wait, who are you, bro?
Yo, who's Poppy Saab, bro? Who is that?
Is that you? Bro, is it? I actually can't tell.
Yo, bro, how about you open my DMs, bro, and don't leave me undelivered for like 3 weeks, bro?
Who's Bro? Yeah, it's definitely you, bro. Are you Poppy Saab, bro?
Yeah, yes, bro. Don't tell anybody.
Oh my god, get off my stage. Oh my god. Wait, okay, actually, if you got more stuff to say, I'll bring you back up. Hey, but I guessed that shit, though. Wait, here, come back up on stage, bro. I guessed that shit, though. Okay, but peep it, like, I didn't forget, though. Anyway,
okay, bro, you call me Jacob, bro.
I said you remind me of Jacob, like, in terms of the... Bro, trust me, I would never mistake Jacob's voice, but the question reminded me of Jacob.
Bro. How's the PB, like, the new PB members, bro? Did you miss the OG, like, the Stack Racks days?
Yeah, okay. I fuck with the new ones,
days, bro.
but, oh my god, the beginning group was low-key beat.
Bro. I had to make a new account just to relive it, you know?
How'd you even get back to 1%?
I rebought it, bro. I paid 3K, bro.
I know the method that you did, bro. Don't worry about it.
No, you don't, bro.
Yes, I do, bro. I'm not dumb.
Bro, you think I would, like, cheat Patrick and Blake, bro? Come on.
Right. Alright, I'm gonna get other people on stage, bro.
Alright, bro.
Alright,
Answer my DMs.
I got you, bro. Alright. No, there's not a way to get in here for free. There was a way to get in here for free. Oh my god, bro. There'd be so many fucking people.
So obviously today's price action kind of threw me off, but I felt like coming in to the day I was like a bit confused, but I was waiting till 10 to show me like what I wanted. So like coming back, we obviously had this dump like at market open, and before we were like, because I was looking at taking the 1 minute, which obviously you took the 15 second before that, and then you said obviously value because of like the manipulation X or whatever. So I baited that because of like the high time frame conditions, because obviously we know that it's pretty choppy. So I said that obviously after FMC last night, or for me it was last night, there was we took out these highs and obviously left a daily gap, but we still took out what these relatively equal highs were. So I said we took out them highs, we also took out these lows as well. So then I knew that this low was sponsored, and I knew that we created obviously this bearish imbalance, so we were still like, oh shit, we were still like obviously we were bearish in terms of us respecting, or we were in a bearish imbalance on a high time. So then we just swept lows and we were back into bearish imbalance. So then I was almost thinking like, really, we come back into the consolidation is what I'm trying to say. And obviously, as we know, we have that 1 hour gap here as well, which I thought like we could play longs off. And then obviously coming to the 1 minute gap, I literally faded it just because I was show me any clear, like, obvious, like, direction of where we wanted to go. I felt like if it was, we'd be displacing higher above this range instead of coming back into this range and then potentially going higher 1 minute, 1 hour gap, which I'd like to see, you know, proper respect and then maybe a continuation or like an actual dump past these lows to ensure that we are going lower. Because obviously we still have like the hourly lows and the daily lows that rest like all down here. So I thought we could potentially go for them. So I was just thinking, was that like a valid thought process?
Honestly, yeah, no, it's actually very good. Like that made total sense because like FOMC, my whole thing with the daily gap, bro, I'm not even gonna target it anymore. Honestly, like with the rejection from FOMC, like it's just whack. Well, obviously, like we took the. I'm pretty sure we went to it now. Actually, did we still? Actually, no, we haven't, have we? Or did we? Yeah, yeah, like we're still rejecting. I don't know, bro. The price is so whack. It just does not want to go to it. But what I do agree with your take on that, right? Like we swept those relatively equal highs. It led to a distribution where in that high time frame imbalance, and we definitely could just top again. I definitely agree with you on that sense, yeah.
Because I feel like if we did dump and then obviously you said there were disrespect and bearish, respect and bullish, but I didn't really see any respect of like bearishness because we haven't actually tapped into any. The only thing I did see actually was we inverse a 4 hour gap, so that was obviously in my head as well. And I was like, if we do inverse a 4 hour gap, but we are still in turn like could be bearish, and I didn't want to take any nonsense hourly gap literally just because it wasn't like clear to me.
Would you have taken a 5 minute continuation out of that hourly gap?
Yeah, for sure. Because I wanted to see that there was like confirmation that we were still going higher.
Yeah, no, I think you set yourself up very well then. Yeah. Sorry, not to cut you off, my bad.
No, all good, all good. But yeah, I felt like obviously, and then we came down here with this move, and I was like, okay, cool. Like maybe this low does get swept out. Maybe this isn't like maybe this isn't sponsored. And then obviously earlier in the call you explained that now there's 2 basically sponsored lows. And then I was like, okay, maybe we do sweep out this low. So obviously I'm going to take a continuation from this gap because I know there's way too discounted. I drew out the EQ, so I was looking for obviously like maybe continuation of shorts from this gap, just seeing what I could get. But obviously the S&T of London held. And another thing that's really weird as well, bro, we literally closed the hourly candle past obviously all these imbalances here, the main one, and we closed below London and these hourly equal lows as well, which I thought was hella weird to then come back up.
Yeah, it is really weird. Like you can kind of understand it with like the high resistance, but even then, I would still want Asia taken. But then after like the displacement we got, I was like, bro, like we're probably not gonna go back to Asia.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. And then obviously we came all the way up to this flight 15. And I'm in my opinion, I'm not going to take a short from this 15 when we just like kind of like invalidate the whole idea of being short. I don't know if that's just me being picky, but I'm never going to take a 5 minute gap from a 15 like that. I feel like it's hella low probability.
No, I agree on that as well. It's also whack structure as well.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well, because it's just clear, nothing's like clear. We're not really respecting anything. Like to reverse these 5s to tap a 15 that's above and then respect the 15 to come lower, it just doesn't really make sense. Because surely if we were to rebalance this over, we'd only need this 5 because this high's here, we don't need to come up here to respect this range. But so yeah, I didn't end up taking anything. I only taken 1 break even this week, so and that was on Tuesday. It was like a B very because I missed the long, but I was wondering if that was a valid thought process because I don't want to be trading like that. That's the wrong narrative.
Nah, bro, I agree with you a lot. Like kind of looking back at my own trade, like I still like trade, but like I've definitely taken better trades. And honestly, if I faded it, I'd be just like as happy as if I had taken it. Yeah, like your thought process, I agree with completely. To be honest, like it makes perfect sense, and it's not just like you're not just like throwing random shit out. Like you're explaining it logically, right? We swept the highs with FOMC. We led to that 1 hour gap. The thing you said with the 4 hour, by the way, make sure that you do analysis on Nasdaq and not NQ because Nasdaq actually never closed that 4 hour. But everything you're saying is totally valid, and I honestly would approach it the same exact way had I not taken the trade super early. Like if I followed along with price for the remainder of up until 11, I would definitely play it the same way.
Okay, cool. And one more question with backtesting as well. So obviously, like there comes a point where like how many trades or how many months of data would you like consider like backtesting to kind of slow down in terms of like routine doing it?
It kind of depends on you. Whenever you think it's like starting to give you diminishing results, that's whenever you should probably stop. Whenever it's kind of just like redundant and you're just like, whenever it just becomes like going through the motions rather than actually learning something, that's whenever you should probably stop. Like I didn't really backtest that much, like leading up to the months that like where I kind of broke out and had profitability, because I backtested forever prior to that. Like I probably had hundreds of hours, and it got to a point where it's kind of just like it's almost like it turns into brain rotting. I'm not learning anything new, and I should really just put all my effort towards live charts. And instead of backtesting for an hour, review the weekly price action for an hour, review your trades, dissect price like that, rather than just going through the motions of backtesting.
Okay, cool. Because this was I'm just gonna show you my backtesting results. I'll just fucking do my screen. Because this is what I'm currently at. Now this is what 47 trades, and this is what obviously the growth is.
That's
I think obviously it's good results, right? But then now, like you just said, I feel like I'm just doing it just to get like the just to sustain or like I'm not learning anything because obviously your method with obviously journaling, this is backtesting, and your method I started doing at the start. I can't remember what day it was. Oh, it's only started in November. But I started doing it on backtesting as well because I thought like there was obviously gaps in my knowledge and whatnot. So I started doing it on backtesting, and I was just basically dissecting it in my own way. And then I felt like this this. I've done this for what, like, must be like a week or two straight, like maybe still doing it up until a certain point. But then now, like, my trades, I'll literally just note down the key parts like this, and then I'll just leave it, just like a picture, and then leave it in the folder. But yeah, I feel like now it's just like I'll take a back test and trade, do this, and then log off.
Yeah, you're probably at that point where it's like less. I would definitely get reps in because like obviously you still want to have like some form of it, but I would do like 3 days of back testing per day, or like a trade a day or something like that. Like just something super light, so you're still obviously getting extra data in, but then you're not just wasting time, because it does just turn into wasting time. You can definitely still learn, but like spending an hour back testing after all of this does kind of become redundant.
Yeah, because it's like, obviously I do this with my trade journal as well. Don't get me wrong, this isn't just all my back testing in history. Like, there's obviously other like folders, but I was never doing it like this, like dead serious, like analysing and journaling my back testing. Like before, it would just be like the piss take, kind of like not taking it serious. And I never actually got anywhere with that for obvious reasons. And then I started doing it doing it like this, and this is why I praised you the other day, because honestly, like without doing this, and like in the future, you know, when I get to the point of like maybe teaching people, like this is exactly how I tell people to learn. Because the second I started doing this shit, it like changed the way I like look at price now, and I won't just go into the chart like today and I'll have my reasons for not taking a trade and so on and so forth. But I feel like me, when I first joined the mentorship, like I just pattern trade, and I wouldn't actually see any of this shit.
No, 100%. Like looking for the logic definitely helps.
Yeah, for sure. But yeah, I feel like now I just do like 1 to maybe like 3 trades most. I think I've done like 3 trades today. So, but most other days I'll just take like 1 or 2 and then do what you said, like do it.
No, yeah, I think that's perfect, because then you're also just not burning yourself out, because like you're not really getting as much benefit. Like you kind of plateaued, which is perfectly fine. So there's no point just like spamming it.
Yeah, I don't want to brain dead with back testing, because I know it's not like, if I'm not learning anything. Like if there's a trade as well, like I'm like a lose, obviously I'm gonna go searching for reasons why I lost. But at the end of the day, there might not be a trade that like there might not actually be a reason I might just get statistically lost, and I'll just move on. But another thing I want to say as well, because obviously I'm at a point with this mentorship, and it's actually weird as well, because obviously you see other people, like they'll join, they'll have maybe like 2 weeks and they'll be getting like actual results. But I joined with already like a payout to my name, but I joined with like funded accounts, and multiple of them, even a trade copy. Like I joined with all of that, and then in the mentorship I haven't actually achieved anything yet. But over the course since I've been here, like I've turned into like another trader that I didn't even think was like possible before joining. And obviously, I know everyone's journey is different, right? I can get that, and I'm not pressuring myself to make any results just for the sake of putting in testimonials, because I know that that'll come in due time. Like I know that'll come when it's deserved properly, and you know when everything's done right. And that I know for a fact in 2026 when I go on a generational run, but it's just a case of like the 3 months actually done more for my psychology rather than technicals, or both to be fair. But the psychology, I had a whole November where I was fading setups, like oh my god.
Yeah, numbers look brutal. But I mean, dude, fucking January could low-key be your breakout month, bro.
That's what I'm thinking, but obviously, you know, like, because you know when you first start trading, you try and tell people around you, like, oh yeah, by this month I'll be making this much, and it's just like, you get to that month and you're still unprofitable, and it's like, I don't actually know what it is with trading, like, you can't put time on this shit, so I just let it happen, and I know that it will happen at one day. But then, like, November, I think this was November, like, look, there was break-even, case study, price action review, case study, and then more case studies. Like, I was fading everything in November. And then I think that month taught me more though about myself and psychology than anything else, which is obviously like dumb when you think about it, but yeah, like.
I mean, bro, that's really good growth, and journaling definitely does like make or break the trader. So just literally keep it, and make sure you do it as you step into profitability as well, right? Like I journaled for I think like 3 months after I was like consistently getting 5 figures, and that also helps as well. Like don't think that like your first 10K month is like it, you know, because a lot of people do actually step back into being unprofitable. Like it is definitely possible to regress.
I mean, I know that 10K is nothing because I know what I want to get, what I want to get to. So it's not like that's a problem. But yeah, it's just a case of like you know you see everyone else's journey, and I just know mine's different. So I'm happy with that. So it's all good. But yeah, appreciate you again, man. For
no problem, bro. And dude, I've seen you here for a fucking minute. Like the growth is like you can actually see happen in real time, like with everyone as well.
Yeah, like I appreciate that, man.
No problem, bro.
Have a good one. I'll be back tomorrow.
Alright, you too, bro. I'll catch you later, man. Yo, wait, how am I supposed to say plateau but with a fucking past tense? No bullshit. Platude? Fuck no, bro. There's no way. Oh my god, we've been on this shit for 2 hours. I know it's not the other way. Wait, hold on. I'm about to look this up. How to say plateau in the past tense. Yeah, this bitch literally has it written out as toad. Toad. Fuck y'all, bro. Oh my god. Oh my god. Plateau out of D. Thanks, bro. Actually, wait. Come up here. Hold up. Avery, if you want to fucking teach me. Let's see you say it. English class, bro. Alright, Say it.
Plateaued. Not pla.
Oh, it wasn't the ending part. Okay.
No.
All right. I thought it was how I ended it, not how I started it. All right, get off my stage.
Hey, hold on. I actually wanted to go on here before I got off for a second.
All right.
How the fuck do you full port news, bro?
Like the stop order method.
Yeah, like I don't understand.
You just throw that shit on the chart,
Whatever
Loki.
the fuck, bro. Like,
Just put a stop order.
Evals, bro. I got 8 of them. I've been trading them. I've only been risking like 0.5 to 1%. I'm up on them. I haven't lost on them yet. But dude, it's just taking forever to pass, bro. Come on.
Okay, but that would be refunded though. That'd be like, oh, it's taking forever to get the payout, bro.
No, because that would actually be like you're on the side of making money. Like you can get that shit paid out. So I wouldn't be tripping about that. I'm just trying to get these motherfuckers passed so I could be on the way. I mean, I guess I probably shouldn't try to.
Yeah, part of me doesn't want to tell you the method because I know it's gonna backfire a little bit. But the way you do it is you put a stop order at an external high or an external low. Like that's all it is.
External high or an external low?
Or well, you put it at both because like FOMC.
Before news.
Wait, that's why you put it like 20 seconds prior to news, and you only do it on certain news events.
Yeah, like CPI and PPI, those are the biggest move days. But
yeah, and where it just goes in one
points
direction.
away, do you set like a buy order and then
You just put it at like just put it at like a 15-minute external high, 15-minute external low. I don't do it because I don't got to pussy out and do the news method. Me personally.
Hey, I'm not even trying to be a pussy, alright?
Nah, I mean I get it.
I don't even know if I'm gonna do it, bro.
There's hella YouTube on it. Or YouTube videos on it. Just look up like the news method to pass emails.
I wake up at 5:30, so that's when PPI and CPI hit. West Coast.
Oh my god, yeah, that'd be fucking. Are you in California?
Hell no.
Oh, thank
I'm in
God.
Washington. Just as fucking bad, but whatever. Not as bad. Not in Seattle though either. Fuck that fucking city, bro.
They're really big.
I'm like 4 hours east of Seattle. It's a little town called Moses Lake.
Yeah.
Just dropping the Addy. Pull up.
I don't know.
Nah, bro. All right. Hey, what's some sauce? Spit me something. I don't know anything. I'm not really struggling with too much, honestly, though. If I'm being for real. Really, just time at this point.
I don't know, bro. You put me on the spot.
What's some good hobbies, dude? I wake up, I trade, I go to the gym, then I go to MMA, and then I'm done by like 1 p.m. So like,
Read books. Reading books is nice.
Nah, hell no. Sorry.
Bro, read Psychology of Money. I just bro, what? I just gave you an answer, bro.
All right. It's gotta be like dude, I haven't read a book since. Oh my god.
Pickleball, play sport. I don't know.
I'm 20, bro.
Yeah, wait, you're 20 like on the dot.
Yeah, on the dot.
I'm the same age as you, but I have all these things, and I read books. Right. That's the difference. So, read a book, Loki.
Come on, man.
I'm dead. You actually should read The Psychology of Money. It actually is a gas book.
Psychology of money. What's it about?
I wonder what.
Like disconnecting yourself from money. Or
It kind of just like it's like a fucking 200-page book, and I read it like 6 months ago. But it just goes about everything, like how the human mind like puts significance towards money. And there was like one study about like that like resonated with me. It was they did a study on essentially old people and how at the end of the day, we live our whole lives caring about money, but the moment you're like towards your fucking end of life, who the fuck cares? So why should you care now? Anyway, you low-key skipped the line, bro. And this other guy just left because he had been waiting. So
obviously wasn't that important of a question. Come on now. He'll DM you. And you'll be back for the next 3 weeks. Fuck it. What was I gonna say? Oh, dude, talking about psychology of money, bro. I saw this thing, and this low-key some sauce, bro. All of us at one point have given like power to money, right? It's kind of going off what you said, like we give power to money, or whatever. Money only has a significance, only has power if you put it towards you, or if you put that shit. If you think about it like that, you put power and significance towards money, then it's gonna control you. You're gonna be attached to it. But it's fucking paper, bro. Like, you let some paper have some power or significance over you, bro.
I mean, yeah, but like low-key money does kind of run the world. So like
100%,
I
bro. 100% agree. Money's fucking like everything, bro. You can have it literally buys you everything. There's nothing money cannot buy, and you can't tell me different. What does it buy, Ronan? Go.
I don't know, bro.
Or what doesn't it buy?
A book. I don't know, bro. I'm gonna give it a buck, bro. I'm trying to get this shit going, bro. I've been up here for 2.5 hours, dude. Oh my god.
Come on, man.
I mean, like some regular ass answer was like it doesn't buy happiness, but like who the fuck's it? Like it definitely does in a little bit.
Does or doesn't?
It definitely does.
Oh, 100%. Yeah, bro. Alright, man. Well, I guess I'll hop off then.
Okay, I'm ending this. That was a long ass video. Hopefully you took something from that. That was a lot, but Ronan is a fucking goat. He goes so into detail on shit. I absolutely love it. Overall, damn, this shit's been going. That's going to be the video for this. I'm going to get this uploaded. Went over, like I said, a couple of trades that you could have taken today and the trade that I liked and that I was wanting to take. Dude, trading's hard. Trading is hard. It is a discretional thing, and you need some bit of a mechanical mindset for it as well. But shit takes time. I'm going to go to bed because I'm only going to get 5 hours of fucking sleep tonight. So I'm getting this uploaded and I'm passing out. Hopefully you took something from this. Hopefully you could journal something from this. Like I said, maybe you don't trade the exact same way that I do, but even the AMD, the Power 3, I mean, that is a great thing for beginners to get into. I don't even really use it. I do use AMD, but I don't have the Power 3 indicator, the open, high, low, close on. But probably should get that going. Probably should actually try to understand that this weekend because I have a lot of work I want to get done Sunday. Sunday through Monday. And just in this next 2 weeks, I have a lot of shit I want to get done, so that's probably something I could add in. But overall, yeah, hope you learned something from this. Peace.